What would you endure for true love? We look at a passage here out of the life of Jacob, the trickster, the con man, the flim-flam artist. And we find a very interesting story here. It's you could say it's a dysfunctional family. There ain't nothing new about dysfunctional families. Y'all thought that was just a southern thing, but it ain't. Everybody, everywhere, has got dysfunctional families. Y'all know, y'all been to your own family reunion. You can say amen to that, eh? You're liable to see anything. I would tell a story or two, but some of my family will probably watch this on DVD, and then I'll get ambushed next time. So I'm not going to tell any of my stories. I'm going to tell some of Rachel's, though. And, no, I'm just kidding. That bunch will stab me quicker than my bunch will. I ain't about to do that. But we see this morning a marriage. Jacob found a woman of his dreams, and he was ready to get married. He was ready to settle down. He was ready to quit being the trickster, the con man. He was ready to be a man of God to his wife. So I want to share with you just a couple of thoughts about marriage can be a mess, because if you've been married for any length of time, you understand that it is a mess sometimes. And we all, and the best of us, go through some very difficult times and situations in marriage, but that's part of learning each other. So I want to take a few minutes to look this morning at this story of this dysfunctional family and talk about the mess that the marriage caused them. First of all, I want to talk about Jacob. Jacob got in a mess when he remarried Rachel. First of all, verse 18 tells me Jacob loved Rachel and said, "I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter." Jacob had to give hard work. Now, remember, Jacob had been here for a month already. And it's interesting to realize, and I don't know exactly what happened during that month. We don't see any words about Jacob working. I don't know if he was just freeloading on them. He just moved in, eating his uncle's food and living in his uncle's tents. And after about a month of that, his uncle says in verse 15, says, tell me, what is your price? I need to pay you for your work. Think about it. Jacob ain't mentioned nothing about wanting a job, has he? He ain't said nothing about wanting to go to work. But Laban, his uncle, says, boy, if you're going to live in my house, you're going to keep up your end of the deal, and you're going to work. You're going to, and by the way, some of our families need to realize that nowadays. It ain't going to kill these youngins to get a job and live a real life, okay? Bible says if a man won't work, the man won't eat. Let him go hungry. It won't take much hunger. You'll be ready to go to work for long. You know what I mean? So Laban, by the way, Jacob is a trickster, but you can't BS the BSer. Amen? Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that or not. Censor me if I can't. But Jacob was a trickster, but his uncle had been in the game longer than he had. His uncle was a player too. And so his uncle very shrewdly says to him, tell me, son, how much you want for your work? How much you want? And I'm sure Jacob's going, hey, man, I got it made. I've been living here for a month off you. I don't want to work. Laban says, oh, yes, you do. Yeah, you really do. Believe it or not, you're going to work. Tell me what your price is. And this morning I ask you, church, what is your price before God? The Lord said through Laban to Jacob, name your price, son. I'm ready to pay you. And let me ask you this, folks. What is your price today? God's going to reward us according to our works. And whatever your price is today, God's going to give back unto you exactly what you give unto him. So I can kind of just stop right here and say, what's your price before God? Jacob got into a mess. Verse 18 says, he answered his uncle Laban, and he says, I tell you what, you got this pretty little old girl named Rachel. She's a sweetheart. I want to marry her, and I will work for you 7 years to marry her. Let me say right here, Laban did not give Rachel or her sister Leah to Jacob until 7 years was up. Because if he'd give her in marriage right off the bat, Jacob would have defaulted in his payments. He would have said, the new car smells wore off. I don't want it no more. Y'all ever go out and buy a new car and you got these payment books and you're so proud of your new car, and 6 months later when the smell's gone and the mud's there and it's been dented a time or two and the payments ain't gone down a bit. You know what I mean? Hey, Jacob's had to pay for 7 years to marry the woman that he loved. So he began to work, and you can imagine this old boy was probably working very hard. Laban probably put him in the field on the cold days and even on the wet days because those animals needed to eat no matter what what the temperature or no matter what the weather. And he began to work his nephew Jacob because his marriage was going to be his reward. For 7 years, he waited on his wife. Rachel and I dated for almost 7 years before we were married. Between 6.5 and 7 years. I can kind of understand what it's like to dread something. I mean, to look forward to something for 7 years. Would our bouncers please kindly escort my wife out? She's getting a little mouthy up here. Yeah. But he worked for 7 years for this gal. And even though the work was hard and the conditions were tough and there was times it was cold and rainy, in the back of his mind he thought about that young girl Rachel. And he had it in his heart that he was going to do whatever it took to marry that girl. Some of y'all know what I mean. You fall in love with some young boy or some young girl, and you decide you're going to do whatever it takes to have that person in your life. You love them, and you feel like God has brought y'all together. I'm going to tell you something, there's going to be some work involved. If you're going to get into a marriage, you might as well be willing to put some work and some time and some effort in it, some blood, sweat, and tears, because it does not come easily. For those of you that have been married, you can back me up on this. There's nothing easy about a successful marriage. It is constant work, and it is work from both sides. You never get to a point where it actually has panned out or it's going to be okay. But we need to realize in Jacob's young life, the only noble and honorable thing that we see about his entire life up to this point is his love for Rachel. Sometimes the love of a woman is the best thing that can happen to a man. Amen? Sometimes it's the worst thing that can happen to a man. Amen? See, some of y'all been on both sides of the fence. You know how that works. I tell people in marriage counseling that marriage will either be the best thing or the worst thing that ever happened to you. And there's very few in-betweens there. It's usually one extreme or the other. But not only was there a lot of hard work that had been brought into Jacob's life, but also verse 21 tells me this. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. He'd been waiting for 7 long years. He'd been working for this gal. He's excited about it. He says, my time is up. I made the last payment. She's mine. Amen. Let's get married. Let's throw a party. But then come the lies. Look down at verse 25. They have the marriage and the party, and it says verse 25, and it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done to me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore hast thou beguiled me or tricked me? How did you con me like this? I worked for 7 years to marry Rachel. One of these verses up here says, verse 17 says, Leah was tender-eyed or weak-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. We got 2 sisters. One's a honey, and the other one's a grenade. They get married. They must have wrapped that gal up with some veils. I'm telling you what's a fact. They just wrapped her up like a mummy, I reckon, and here she goes getting married. They spend their first wedding night together. They consummate the marriage. When the morning, by the way, this is a good advertisement why you need electricity in your home. Because when it gets dark, you don't know what's going on, man. He opens up his eyes the next morning, and there's old ugly Leah. Some of you boys that drink a lot, you can understand what this is about. He wakes up and he goes, you got to be kidding me. What the? I mean, no, he did not. And y'all ever had trouble with your in-laws? Jacob's fixing to. He knows what that's all about. So he goes to his father-in-law or to his uncle and he says, Laban, what's the deal, man? I worked 7 long years for Rachel. I worked and I done everything you ever asked, and I put the time in and I put the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears in so I can marry your most beautiful daughter, and you give me her? By the way, you know Leah had some ugly young'uns too. I can just see it, by the way. And she had at least 7 children by Jacob. One girl and 6 boys that are mentioned in the Bible. And I bet you all 7 of them was just uglier than homemade sin. You know what I mean? And Jacob's thinking, man, we have ugly young'uns and ugly grandyoung'uns. Man alive. Of course, I don't know. Loving youngins, that's a parent thing. You got to be a parent to really appreciate the beauty of a baby. Because I ain't never seen a baby that was pretty. I know some of y'all are going to get mad about this, but I didn't, man. And y'all have a baby and they go, preacher, hold it. And I go, no, I don't want to hold it. It leaks. I don't. Y'all go, ain't she pretty? Look at him. He's so beautiful. He looks like an 80-year-old crack addict. Are you kidding me? I didn't mean to get into all that. I just want you to know. But when you marry somebody like Leah, that's what you got to look forward to. Amen. So be careful. Y'all never let me hold a young'un again. That's the rest of my life. But it's interesting to realize that old Jacob got tricked and lied to. And I wonder if it happened to occur to him at this time. Some years ago, he tricked his father the same way. He tricked his father and told him he was the elder when he was really the younger to get the blessing. Now, years down the road, he's getting married, but he gets the same trick played on him. He gets the older instead of the younger. What goes around comes around, my friends. And I don't know about you, but that scares me. Because the life that most of us lived, we don't want coming back on us. But it does. God has a way of bringing things back on us like that, and that's exactly what happened to him there. The trickster had finally been tricked. But then we see not only does he have hard work and lies, but he's in debt up to his eyes. Look at verse 27. Laban says, fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve me yet 7 other years. Boy's done work 7